Hello sweet friends, welcome back to a new full tutorial video here on Rock City Cookies. My name is Rachel and I am so thrilled that you have joined me for this really cute unicorn birthday themed set. This set was for a little girl named Macy who was turning 7 who had a deep love of unicorns. But as with all of my cookies, you can easily modify these designs to fit your customers' needs. Welcome to Rock City Cookies, where we talk about all things cookies. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon to be notified when we upload a new video. Thanks for watching. Let's get going with our first design, which is a plaque that has some unicorn balloons on it. Now, right from the beginning, I'm going to go ahead and warn you about this set. My footage is not going to be the greatest. Back when I did this set, it was long before I had any desire to ever be on YouTube. I was just recording to record, which meant that for a little bit of time, I thought that recording my sets in time lapse would be the best usage because I was just going to be posting it on social media. However, don't do that. Never do that because you lose so much quality when you record in time lapse. And as you can see here, the footage is shaky when you slow it down. So if you ever record your sets, make sure you record in just regular speed, and then in an editor, you can slow it down or speed it up. So that's my hot take right off the gate is this whole set is recorded in time lapse and I highly regret it, but it was a cute enough theme that I thought I would go ahead and show you guys, but just know that it is going to be a little bit of shaky footage. It's not the greatest. Now, this plaque that I'm using here is a plaque that I have had since the very beginning of my cookie journey. It is just a metal cookie cutter that I got on Amazon, and with all of my cookie cutters, they will be listed in the description box below, but I have used this plaque many times in my sets. So if you are looking to build up your cookie cutter stash, I highly recommend that you start building up your cookie cutters by purchasing all different kinds of plaques, because a plaque can go with any theme and can be modified no matter what you're doing just by the designs on top. So this plaque I got on Amazon, and I actually decided that I wanted this set to be a very colorful set. I didn't want to just use one color per design. So I actually did every single one of these designs in each color. That assured that my whole set was just going to be an explosion of all of these colors because every single design had a different colored background. Now, of course, I only used so many colors. However, I did 5 different backgrounds. Now, obviously, I did coordinate my colors. I didn't just use an endless amount of colors. I think I have 5 colors here. I have yellow, purple, pink, teal, and light blue. I believe those are my 5 colors. So I just used all 5 of those colors as my background for almost every single design in this set. So I did 5 of these plaques and each one was in a different color. With all of my cookies, I always outline my designs first and then I flood them, and I have 2 different consistencies to do so. I outline with a thick consistency, it's in a whole separate bag, and then I flood immediately before the outline has even dried. I flood right away with a thinner consistency. But the thick consistency holds that thin consistency onto your cookie so that it doesn't spill over the edge. But you don't have to wait for it to dry. You can do that step right away. Now that I have all of my cookies flooded, it's time to let them dry, and I do so under a fan for a few hours before I add any details on top. But now that they have dried, it's time to do some marker work. So you're going to use a black edible marker. Again, I'll have the ones I use linked down in the description box below. And you will draw the strings of your balloon onto your cookie. Now, all of the graphics for this set will be found on my Patreon page, which is just $5 a month, and you can come and go as you please. You can get your resources and then cancel it. But I do keep all of the graphics for my sets from now on Patreon. So if you want this specific graphic and you don't want to look for it yourself, feel free to head over there. Otherwise, just do a Google search for a clip art of balloons, unicorn balloons, just something along those lines, and you'll find a grouping of balloons that you can use to project onto your cookie. Now, I totally forgot to mention, but I did splatter these cookies with gold. Now, this is TMP's Super Gold, and it's just a luster dust that you mix with a high grain alcohol. You can obviously use whatever you want. I use this Gem Clear 190 proof clear alcohol. So it's definitely a very, very high grain alcohol. I can't even imagine someone actually drinking this. But the reason why you mix your luster dust with a high grain alcohol is because your alcohol will completely evaporate away and it won't damage your icing at all. When you mix with water, water damages the royal icing. Icing and water don't mix, and so it will actually like eat away at your icing like acid. So you want to always mix your luster dust, your paints, your gels, anything like that you're using on top of your cookies. You want to always mix it with a high grain alcohol to protect your cookies. So I mix with a food safe paintbrush. I mix my luster dust, my gold luster dust, and my alcohol in a little cup, it doesn't take much, so you just have to have a little container of some sort, and you mix it together until it becomes a paste. You don't want it too liquidy, but you don't want it too thick, so kind of a thinner paste. You mix it together, and then with your toothbrush, and then with your paintbrush, with the gold on it, then you will then splatter all of that onto your cookies. So typically what I do is I hold my paintbrush, and with the gold on it, I then with my other hand flick my paintbrush. Hang on, let me show you. Now obviously this paintbrush doesn't have any gold on it right now, but how I hold it in my hand is I hold it with this so that it has the gold on it after my mixture's there, and then with my other finger, I just take one finger and I flick it just like this, and it splatters all over your cookie. And I have found that's just a little bit better than going like this. It controls it just a little bit more if you're just hitting it like this, so it gets that splatter effect. The reason why I drew my strings first before I did the gold splatter was because it is really hard to draw on top of that gold luster dust. So if you have any sort of drawings that you're doing on any cookie, it doesn't have to be these, it can be any cookie. If you can do that drawing work first before you add any luster dust, it will be very beneficial, because that marker does not want to stay on that luster dust. It will, however, stay on your cookie. So draw your strings first with your black edible marker and then add the gold splatter. And I highly recommend that if there's ever a time that you can batch your work and you can do all of one step for all of that specific design at once, I highly recommend that you do so. It just helps to speed up the process. So here I grouped all of my cookies onto one paper towel, and I did the gold luster dust on all of them at one time. But now you can move on to piping on the balloons onto your cookie. Now, because I had the different colored backgrounds, I knew I had 3 balloons plus a string, and that was going to give me all 5 of my colors. So I could use all 5 colors on each one of these cookies. However, I knew I would have to be rotating out those colors so that each cookie was a little bit different. So with this yellow cookie, I did a purple, a blue, and a pink balloon with a green string, so I wasn't repeating that yellow color on top. And then you'll see me do that over and over. Depending on whatever color is in the background, I'm not going to repeat that color on top. I'll use the other 4 colors to do my balloons in my string. Now, with your projector on or without your projector on, this is a pretty simple design. So if you don't have a projector, you can pretty easily duplicate this design on your own. They're just little hearts, and you add just a tiny little upside down heart at the bottom of the balloon so that it looks like the part that you blow into. And then you just add a little bow onto the strings. It's really simple. So I like consistency, so I project an image when I can just so that all of my cookies look the same. So I do project the heart balloons onto my cookie. I outline them, and then I turn off my projector, and then I flood each one of the cookies. That's just how my workflow works best, but you're more than welcome to do whatever works best for you. These balloons are areas on your cookies that can crater, so you don't want to have too thin of icing that you're doing on top of your cookie. So make sure you use your scribe tool and pop out any air bubbles that you see. But then I also wanted it to look a little bit like a cartoony. I mean, this whole set is unicorns and it's very whimsical and cartoony. So I wanted the balloons to have that as well. So I did go back with a white, and I did kind of a wet on wet technique on my balloons. I just did a little streak and a little dot on each balloon, so it kind of looks like that shininess of the balloon, the reflection of the balloon on each cookie. So you just repeat those steps over and over again on your designs. So again, whatever my background was, I made sure I didn't repeat that color on top, but because all 5 of my colors are represented on this design, it's really great for that consistency when you're looking at those pictures later on. It just really helps your set to pop when you have such a cohesive design. And the biggest part of cohesion is oftentimes your color scheme. After you finish all of your balloons, you will need to let this dry before you can finish out this cookie. Icing on top of my cookies never takes anywhere near as long to dry as it does that original flood. So you're not going to have to wait just forever to be able to do marker work on top of this design. However, you do have to make sure that that icing is very dry. Otherwise, your marker will push through your icing and it'll put a hole into your icing, which is extremely, extremely frustrating. So make sure that you do allow it to dry. Again, put it under a fan. It will make such a difference in your drying time. But once your cookies have dried for a couple hours under a fan, you will be able to then finish off these cookies by doing some unicorn eyes on top of each of the balloons. And that's just a fun way to tie in the birthday theme and the unicorn theme together. Birthday balloons and unicorn eyes. And just like I said with the gold splatter, this is something I don't need my projector for. So I am just adding the unicorn eyes to all of these cookies at one time. So I put them all out right next to me onto my work table. These are on top of a paper towel, and then I just one by one add the unicorn eyes to all of the cookies. It really does help to save time if you can do all of this step at once. And that is it for our first design, the unicorn birthday balloons. All right, next up is our heart cookie. Now, I wanted to combine magical themed elements, and so it's not just about unicorns, it's about hearts and rainbows and all of the fun stuff combined. So this cookie will actually be 2 of those things. It's going to be a heart cookie with a rainbow on top. So once again, I did want to duplicate all of those colors on every design. So I made sure that I had 5 cookies and each one had a different color on them. Now this is a really large order, so I actually had to do 7 cookies of every design. So I did duplicate a couple colors, but I made sure that at least every color was represented on these hearts. Now I have a lot of heart cookie cutters. I'm sure a lot of you do. I have them in all various sizes, but I really like when you can buy a shape in cookie cutters and you get multiple sizes of that same shape. So I have circles that are that way, I have squares and rectangles, and I have stars that are that way, and I also have hearts that are that way. And so I'll link it down below, the metal cutters that I use. I'm sure you can also find similar things on Etsy if you don't like metal cutters. I really don't care either way. I use metal cutters just like I use the 3D printed cutters. But this set is actually some metal cutters, just like my last plaque was, and it's all various sizes. So this was somewhere in the middle, a heart that was in the middle of them. I highly recommend, if you don't have those kind of cutters, that's another thing that's a really great addition to your stash, because you can use it over and over and over again. As with all my cookies, as I've mentioned before, I outline and then I flood right away. And then I use a scribe tool and I get out all of those air bubbles, and if I need to smooth out my icing icing, I use the scribe tool to do that as well. Once you have all of your cookies outlined and flooded, it's time to once again do that gold splatter. And I just like to, if I'm using gold in anywhere else in the cookie, I like to add it in other places too, again, for that cohesion. And so that's why I did a gold splatter on the last cookie, and that's why I'm doing it on this one too, is just I like to have that detail added over and over again so that the set looks like it goes together. So I did the gold splatter on all of the hearts, and now I'm just going to add a rainbow on top. Now this does not need a projector. You're just simply going to use all of the colors that you already have in your set, and this is your thick icing. This is the same exact icing that I'm using to outline all of my cookies before I flood them. I'm using them also for detail work. So you'll start with just doing some curved arches. Now I did, even though this isn't like traditional rainbow colors, I did still try to stick with the Roy G. Biv rainbow order. So I did pink, yellow, green, blue, purple for my rainbow order. And then as I came in, of course, my arches got smaller and smaller and smaller. And in order to save me time from picking up the piping bag over and over and over again, I did my rainbow on all of my cookies at one time. So you're gonna do all of that pink arch once on all of the cookies, and then you're gonna pick up your new piping bag and you're gonna go back with the next color, and you're gonna do it on all of your cookies, and then you'll put your piping bag down, and then you'll grab another color. So it just really is a time saver if you're not having to constantly put down, pick up, put down, pick up, put down, pick up. If you can do more work while you have that one piping bag in your hand, that is the way to do it. So that's what I did here. And then at the end, I just added my little white clouds to the bottom of my rainbow. And I did all of the clouds at one time as well. And that's it. That is all we had to do for our little cute heart cookies with rainbows on top. That was probably the easiest design in this set, but I still think it was cute, even if it was the easiest one. Next up is our name cookie. So one of the biggest things about custom cookie sets is people really want to include the child's birthday number, the child's name. That's what makes custom cookies custom. So I always like to, if it's a birthday set, I always like to incorporate the child's name. So in this case, our birthday girl's name is Macy. Once again, I am using a Plaque cookie to do so. Now this Plaque cookie is from Kaleidacuts, and this is her Nancy cookie cutter. When I first started in the cookie world about 4 years ago, everybody had this Plaque cookie cutter, and we all used it all the time. Now, I don't know if I'm still the only one that uses it or not. She does. I think it's still one of her top sellers on her page on Etsy. Again, it'll be linked in the description box below, but I still use it all the time. I love it. I love the shape of it. I love the size of it. It is just a perfect cookie cutter. So this is the Nancy cookie cutter, and you will see me use this over and over and over in all of my sets, but I'm just outlining it and flooding it right away, just like I have all of my other cookies, and I'm getting out the air bubbles in my royal icing. The reason why in your flood icing it's really important to get out those air bubbles is because those air bubbles can actually leave a hole in your icing, because sometimes those bubbles will come up and pop while your cookie is drying. And so when it pops, it literally leaves like holes in your icing. Sometimes they're just like little pin pricks, but sometimes they're pretty decent sized holes in your flood. So you definitely want to make sure you get out those air bubbles. But also the reason why I like to get out air bubbles is because if you are doing any marker work on your cookie, like this one, we will be doing some marker work directly onto this flood base icing. If you have air bubbles, that marker will find that weakness in your icing, and your marker will just puncture right through your icing, and it is so incredibly frustrating. So if you can't get out all of your air bubbles, but if you can get out, especially the ones that you can for sure see, do so. Now that we have all of our cookies flooded and they have been drying for a few hours, let's go ahead and add our details on top. Now, if you have a child with a longer name, you may not be able to do what I did on this design, which was include a unicorn and the birthday girl's name. But since Macy was a smaller name, it felt weird to just have a cookie with just her name on it, because it was just it's a 4-letter name, so it's just not a very long name. So when I was designing this set, I thought it looked off, and so that's when I decided to add a little unicorn graphic next to her name, which actually ended up great because you can't have too many unicorns in a unicorn set. So I actually really enjoyed that I was able to do that. But if you have a child with a longer name, like Madeline or Ashley, or I mean really a lot of names would be too long to be able to squeeze in a unicorn and the birthday girl's name or birthday boy's name. So just do what you can, but remember, it may not work out in your design. Again, I'm going to remind you, these graphics will be on Patreon. Otherwise, you can just look up unicorn. What did I look up? I want to say maybe unicorn phase or unicorn. I think maybe just unicorn, cute unicorn graphics, cute unicorn eyes. I mean, I can't remember. You might just have to play around with your words, but there's no shortage of unicorn graphics out there. I'm sure you'll be able to find something, but I did find this by looking it up on Google. So I am doing little heart cheeks with my pink edible marker, and then I am adding the pink onto the ears as well. Then with my black marker, I'm going back and doing the unicorn eyes. I'm outlining the ears. And then I'm going to do my gold splatter, because remember what I said, once you add that gold splatter, your markers will hate you. So do not do the gold splatter first and then the unicorn graphic. Do the unicorn graphic first, then gold splatter it, and then you can finish off the cookie with the name of the child and the unicorn horn. Now, the unicorn horn is going to have to dry for just a little bit, because I'm then going to go back and paint it gold. But to begin with, you just need to go ahead and pipe it white, and then you can go back with your gold and paint it after it's dried, which will not take long at all. That little bitty amount of icing, and with it being a thick icing, it will only take just a few minutes of drying time before you're able to go back and paint it gold. But once it has dried just long enough that you can paint it, then you will, with your gold luster dust, the same thing that you're using to splatter your cookies, then you will use that same mixture and paint the unicorn horn. After you have painted the unicorn horn, then you're going to want to add the unicorn hair, and I just did so by just randomly swooping a little bit of icing of all the different colors onto the unicorn horn off of the face. And then that's it. That's really all it takes for that little unicorn graphic with the birthday girl's name. And I did pipe the birthday girl's name in white so that it would stand out no matter what color I was using as the background. I did choose to do her name in white, and also white is used throughout the set, so it just helps to incorporate that white in as well. Moving on to our rainbow cookie. Now this cookie, I have lost footage. I looked everywhere for me flooding these rainbow cookies, and I have no idea where it went. I'm so sorry. I'm just gonna explain what I did. I did wet on wet. So the first thing that you need to do is just with your first color, again, you're gonna follow that rainbow order. So I did pink first. So with that pink, you're gonna wanna use your thick outline and outline the curve, the top curve of the cookie. And that's just to keep your rainbow, it's to keep your icing from spilling over the edge. But that's the only part you have to outline, is you just outline the top of the rainbow. And then with your flood icing, you're gonna go through and do one arch with each color, allowing your floods to blend together, and then just continue on down through your rainbow order. So I did my pink flood, and then I immediately went with the wind with my yellow flood, and then my green, and then my blue, and then my purple right away. And then they just kind of melt together, and it's that wet on wet technique, and you're able to just allow it to dry that way. So as you can see, not every single one of these rainbows is exactly the same, because I just did an arch for each one, and so every time it's going to look just a tiny bit different depending on how much you squeeze of your icing or how much you let out of your bag. But it really doesn't matter, just as long as you have an arch and you have your rainbow color or rainbow order. And it probably does help to have that consistency of using the same order every single time. After your flood has dried, then I always like to, I can't say I'll always do this, but a lot of the times I do go back with my thick icing, and then on top of the color that's below it, so on top of my pink flood, I'm gonna do my pink arch. and then you'll just follow that rainbow order down. I think it just adds a little bit more to your rainbow. There's that extra detail, just helps it to pop. It just makes it a little bit cuter. So that's why you see me do that icing on top of the icing, just to make it a little bit more fun. Once your arches are done and you've outlined all the different colors. Oh, I forgot to mention I did gold splatter this cookie as well. So you're gonna see me do that over and over on this set. I did gold splatter the rainbow as well before I did the piped arches. After you do the gold splatter, after you do the arches, then you just add your fluffy little clouds onto your cookie. Now this cookie cutter is ours. It's actually a cookie cutter that I use for ice cream scoops as well as for rainbows, but I have a different rainbow cookie cutter listed on our Etsy shop as well. So if you don't like the style of this rainbow cutter, obviously we have one more listed, and then if you go to Etsy and you type in rainbow cookie cutters, you'll come up with a million different options. But this particular design is actually a dual design. You can use it for ice cream scoops as well as rainbows. All right, and that's it for that cookie. Now let's move on to the birthday girl's number, which she was turning 7. Again, this cookie cutter is one of ours. It'll be listed in the description box below, but you're more than welcome to use whatever birthday number you have on hand. Or if you don't want to invest in numbers, which is totally fine. I didn't have birthday numbers for the longest time, basically until my husband started making cookie cutters for me. I did not invest in birthday numbers. So if you don't want to have a specific number, I highly recommend that you just get a circle or some sort of plaque, rectangle, square, really anything can work for this, an oval. Just do a background, a solid background, and then pipe your number on top of that. Easy peasy, and that's how I did birthday numbers for 3 years before I started doing individual cutters for them. So don't feel like you have to go out and buy new cookie cutters for every single set. Use what you have, and using a plaque with a birthday number on top works just fine. But for this cookie cutter, obviously I did have a 7, so I'm outlining and flooding all of my 7s in the 5 different colors. And a lot of times when I do birthday numbers, I like to also write out their number on top. So like for this 7, I'm actually going to write out the word 7 on top as well. I think there's also a really cute look whenever you do the birthday child's name on top of the birthday number, so that works as well. So instead of having a cookie that said Macy, I could just also on the 7 put Macy and eliminate that design altogether. Or you can do a design on top of your birthday number to tie it in even more. So I could have put a unicorn face on top of this 7. That would have worked too. Really, it's really endless on what you can do with birthday numbers. But if I can add the child's birthday number onto the set somehow, I always do so. And I recommend that you do as well. It just, again, it adds to that customization, which is what your clients and your customers are seeking. They want that child to feel special. Obviously, it's that specific birthday. It's their cookies. So I just think it is a really good policy to add their number if you can. Now back to the cookies. Make sure you gold splatter these cookies as well. And if you don't want to use gold splatter, actually, I don't use a whole lot of gold when I'm doing a splatter on a cookie. I use far more gold when I'm painting gold onto a cookie. So if you're afraid that you're using way too much gold and you don't want to splatter an entire set like this, I totally understand. However, I do not go through very much gold at all when I splatter cookies. So for me, it's always worth it to go ahead and do that gold splatter. If it's a part of my design, I don't worry about using too much. It's really only when I have to sit there and paint extensively that I go through a ton of gold. After splattering all of your 7s with gold, and in the video you can see me using it, but I do use paper towels under the gold because the gold goes everywhere and it is not the easiest to clean up. It kind of smears when you go to clean it up off of your table or whatever. So if you can remember to do so, it's really, really smart to put a paper towel or something underneath your cookies to catch the excess gold splatter so you're not having to clean up a huge mess afterwards. Now that the cookies are splattered and I have written out 7 with my white thick icing, I'm going to do just a little rainbow stripe across my 7 just to add a little bit more fun and to not have a boring cookie. And that rainbow is tying into when I've used rainbows in other places on the set. And just like all of the other times I'm going to stick with, did I stick with? I was about to say, just like all of the other times I stuck with the rainbow order, but actually I was just watching myself decorate one, and I don't think I did stick with the rainbow order this time. I think I did the yellow first, and then the pink, and then the green, and then the blue, and then the purple. So for whatever reason, I didn't do that one in rainbow order, but it does look like I did it the same exact way every single time. So anyway, do as I say, not as I do, right? Okay, so that's it for our number 7 cookie. It is complete. Our birthday number is done. Let's move on to our star cookie. And this is a very quick, easy design, just like our hearts. This one doesn't take long at all. I love having designs in every set that I can just breeze through. I don't have to think about. They still add to the set. They're still cute, but they're super easy to do. And the star cookies are one of those. I will say that I did have to make a lot of icing for this set because of the amount of color I was using for every single color. So I had to have pretty big bags of icing when I was doing my flooding icing. I like it whenever I have just a few colors I have to do like a big bag of icing for, and then the other colors don't have to be such big bags. But if you're doing a rainbow set of any kind and you are doing it like this, where you're using all of those colors, you're flooding lots of cookies with them, I will warn you that I do really big bags of icing for those, because the worst thing to happen would be to run out. It's really difficult to rematch a color once you have already made it. And so I tend to err on the side of making too much icing and having to freeze it and reuse it in other designs than not enough. With a set like this, you definitely want a full bag of flood icing per color. And on Patreon, I do show you how I do my icing, how I do my thick icing and my thin icing, and how I save time. All of that's on Patreon, but I definitely recommend that you make sure you have enough of each color to be able to do this many flooded designs if you have a large order. Once my flood is done and dry, I then gold splatter this cookie as well, and then I'm going to add my stripes. Now this is the kind of same stripes that you just saw me do on the 7 cookie, but you're going to want to put all of them down at one time and do all of your stripes at once. So these don't have to be 100% identical. Just make sure that you are putting stripes across your stars. I do one color at a time. So I did all of the pink, all of the orange, yellow. I did all of the green, all of the blue, and all of the purple stripes as on all the cookies before I set down my piping bag. And that's it. Our little star cookies are done. And again, this cookie cutter was from Etsy, and it was in a pack of multiple sizes of stars, which I highly recommend, because then you can use them for all sorts of sets, no matter what size design you need. Our final cookie in this set is our unicorn cookie, the star of the show. Now with my unicorn, with any character, any animal, any person, anything that has an eye, I always do my eye first. And the reason for this is a lot of things. One, the eye is the most important part of the cookie, in my opinion. If you don't get the character's eyes right, it looks off. And I feel like anytime I see a cookie that I feel like doesn't look quite right, and it's a character or an animal or something, it usually comes down to the eyes. So you want to make sure that you get the eye right. And for me, that's doing the eye first. So I outline the eye, and then I go ahead and do the white part. I fill it in with white, and then I do, with a wet on wet technique, I do the color next. And you aren't going to want too thin of icing here. If you have too thin of icing, your eye will crater. So make sure you have kind of a medium icing here. You'll do the white, you'll do the color right away, and then you'll go back with your thick black icing. You'll put that right in the middle of the eye, and then with a little bit of white, you'll add kind of that white sparkle in the character's eyes. And you'll do all of that first before you do anything else. So do that part of your cookie and let it dry, and then you can come back and add the details. On my unicorn, once the eye has dried, then I'm going to go back and I'm going to do the unicorn's cheek. Now I want this to be separate from the whole rest of the flood, so I'm going to do the cheek next and let it dry, and then I'll go back and fill in the rest of our unicorn. And the reason reason for this is that horses and unicorns, you know, they have strong cheeks, and so I want that to stand out, to be separate from the rest of the unicorn. And it's the little details like that that also make a huge difference in your characters. Layer, 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 layer. As much as you can layer, you want to layer when you're doing animals or characters or people. So after the cheek has dried, now I'm going to go ahead and finish outlining the rest of the cookie and doing him white. Then I can come back and finish the unicorn off. So you are going to want to put a strip of thick icing right here on the mouth, just so that there is a definition when it comes to the unicorn's mouth. You're going to want to do the, it's actually 2 ears. It kind of looks a little funny right there, little white strip, but that's actually the unicorn's 2nd ear. So you're going to do the ears, and then you're also going to want to go back with your flood icing and fill in the unicorn at that time. Now, when you're doing the flood close to his mouth, just make sure you aren't overfilling that area and that you don't lose the strip where his mouth is or her mouth is. So don't overfill your flood when you're doing characters. You really kind of want a thinner layer. After the flood has dried, you're going to go back and now paint the unicorn's horn with that gold luster dust. So after you have painted, then we can go back and add the final touches to our unicorn, which is the unicorn's beautiful hair and the unicorn's cute little cheek. So I took my pink edible marker and I added a heart onto its cheek. And we need to add some definition to the unicorn's eyes. So with your black edible marker, you're going to want to outline the top of its eye, and then you're going to want to do just those little eyelashes right there at the end, just to kind of give it that cute whimsical look. It's very similar to what we did on the unicorn balloons and what we did on the name cookie. You're just going to want those cute little 2 eyelashes right there at the corner of the unicorn's eye. And I'm going to add 1 little white little strip right there for its nostril. And then now we finally get to add the hair. So with all of our cookies down, you are going to want to do the same thing that I've been saying before, 1 color at a time. Do it on all of the unicorns. So you're going to do a little bit of hair up here up top on the forehead of your unicorn, and then also have it where it looks like the hair is just coming down the side of the unicorn. And this part kind of takes just a few minutes to do. You don't want to do it too quickly because you don't want your icing to kind of blend together. You want the hair to stay separated so that it has that definition, but also you want it to be a little bit wavy because, you know, you want the unicorn hair. It's not straight hair like my hair. You want it to be a little bit wavy and have that texture. So you're going to want to do each color at a time and kind of randomize the movements of your hand just so that there's some wave there, but so that it's not, every wave isn't exactly the same with every color. And you just build, build, build. So you do it over and over and over again until you have all of the hair built up. Now for the hair right here on the forehead, you don't want too much. So you just want it to kind of fall down its nose and kind of tuck in between the unicorn and the unicorn's ear. So you definitely only want to do 1 of each color up top, but then down below, you're gonna do each color multiple times. So just to keep consistent, I had my icing bags lined up next to me and I just went down the line, and then I started over again and then I went down the line. That way I wasn't using 1 color too many times and I didn't have to mentally keep track of what color I had used. I just put bag down, picked up the next bag in line, put that bag down, picked up the next bag in line, and then that gave me a consistent usage of each of the colors for the unicorn's hair. And then once it's completely filled and you feel good with what it looks like and how it built up, our unicorn cookie is done. Okay friends, that is it for this unicorn birthday set. I hope that you learned a few new things that you can use in your own sets. Please, please, please let me know if you have any questions at all. Remember to look in the description box for any links that you might need. If there's something not there, please let me know and I will add it. Thank you so much, friends, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.